I just finished sculpting, painting, and importing this gnome prop into S&Box, and I want to show you the entire process to create it. There's quite a few steps, and in total this took around 4 hours of work, but if you decide to follow along and make your own, you'll find that it gets faster and easier the more you practice. And for that hard work, you're rewarded with a prop that could be used in any S&Box game mode, or really any game engine. So I had the idea of making a video series out of prop creation, and I asked in my Discord if anyone had a request for a specific model they wanted me to add. One of my friends recommended a gnome prop, but he wasn't exactly sure what a prop was, so let me explain quickly. A prop is just an object that can be placed and interacted with in-game using the physics engine. Gary's mod has a ton of these, and many are currently being created for S&Box too. So if you have any props you want me to make, just write a comment below, and in the next video maybe I'll make yours. The first step in creating a prop, or any model, is finding reference images. Usually I just use Pinterest. Then I save and collect these images on a board. I use an app called PureRef for this. It's free, it works great, and it does everything I need. So I save each image with a short caption describing the thing I like about it. Whether that be the colors of the image, specific parts of the image, things like that. I only had 8 pictures for this prop, but it's easy to end up with a ton more depending on the complexity of the model. Most important for this one though was actually a video from my favorite Blender YouTuber that I follow. With my images and tutorial saved, the next step is to create a blockout, which is just a very low detail version of the final model I have in mind. This helps to create proportions and to visualize the end result. For this, I use the free tool Blender. I create the very basic shape for each of the main objects that will appear on this gnome: the hat, the feet, the nose, the mustache, and finally the head itself. Now that I have a blockout, I can sculpt each of these objects separately. Then it's time to start sculpting, which was new for me. For this process and the next step of texture painting, I use a very basic painting tablet because it makes the process way easier. I start with the hat, using the snake hook brush. This brush is similar to the grab brush, and it lets me pull the hat into the general shape I'm looking for. Then I smooth the surface out. I do the same with the nose, the mustache, and the boots, and leave them in a pretty basic shape because I'm going to return to them later and give it a higher detail. This step is basically just for putting everything into the approximate position I'm looking for. As you can see, I make a lot of changes here because this is the time that you have to experiment and see how you want the final model to look. All that's left is the face now, so I move the beard down and out a bit, give the model some stronger cheeks, and then pull the hair into place at the back of the head. I use the hair to hide the rear of the model's feet. Basically just creates less work for me. With the general shape now achieved, I can start putting in more detail on each of the objects. The hat needs a prominent brim to match my reference image, so I start painting that on, along with some dents to give it a more used look. Then I smooth it and the rest of the model out a bit more. For the hair, I'm going for a wavy appearance just like the reference images, so I paint strong lines in. This is sped up a lot by the use of a mirror, meaning anything I paint on the left side will appear on the right side too. Then once again, smoothing it out so that it looks nice and calm. I do the same with the mustache and the beard, giving them the appearance of having many strong strands of hair. All I'm doing is painting on lines with the draw brush and then making those lines look a bit sharper with the crease brush. I did the same thing to the beard here, but this ended up getting changed a bunch later on anyway, so it was a bit of a waste. Then I improved the nose a bit, and the sculpt is basically complete. All I'm doing here is making the nose a bit wider, putting in some dents for the nose holes, and then giving it a more realistic appearance so that it looks nicer overall. And then we're complete. This is our final sculpt. Now that I have my model, I need to separate it out into several pieces to make painting way simpler. Even though it's all one object, I can press L on the different areas to highlight each section, and then separate them by pressing P. So I end up with 5 objects instead of 1. Because of this, I can use the paint bucket tool to give each of these pieces the general color I want. So I paint the shoes brown, the beard and the hair white, the skin a peach color, and the hat red. Then it's just a matter of enhancing the color and the detail on each of these objects. For each piece, I only use 1 or 2 colors, but create variety by switching the brush to multiply, which darkens the paint, or screen, which lightens the paint. Here I use the multiply brush on the dents of the hat, where it should be darker, and the screen brush on the edges, where it would be lighter. On the face, I make sure to give some redness to the cheeks, and some darkness on the eye sockets. even though we won't see the eyes, that darkness will give the impression that there are eyes there. The nose is basically the same and needs some redness on top and in the middle, and then some darkness in the nose holes below. As for all of the hair, I'm going for a dirty white look, so I need to make sure to use lots of darkness in the crevices and lots of lightness on the creases or the hair that's raised. So here you can see me highlighting those creases and painting lots of darkness in the crevices. I also make sure to darken the top of the head where the hair connects to the hat to simulate that sort of shadow. And do the same on the top of the mustache and the top of the beard too. After all of that, this is our result. It's a pretty simple gnome with a cool wizard hat and paint that I'm pretty happy with. In total, this took 2 or 3 hours of work, probably closer to 3. And you can see the shadows look a bit off, but that's just because of the render settings I had it in on Blender. So once we put it into S&Box, it looks better. To import this gnome, I saved the model and the texture image from Blender and opened up the S&Box game editor. I need to create a new project, which is where this model will be saved. Projects are used for every type of creation in S&Box, whether it be a simple model like mine, an entire map, or a whole game mode. I have to create a new folder here, save the add-on into that, and then open up the model editor in-game and drag those files that I saved into the folder I just created. So here you can see my texture image and my FBX file going over. To make the model appear, I have to add a component. So here I add a render mesh file, which basically just tells the model editor to make this FBX file appear on the screen. As you can see, the gnome is currently massive, so I make it smaller by changing the import scale down to just 5%. Next, this gnome needs a material, so I open the material editor and create a new material. This is where I'll save and import that texture image that I created. So all I have to do is open up that color section, select my gnome texture image, and then accept it. I also want to change the roughness here so it doesn't look too shiny, and that's pretty simple. So then we go back to the model editor, select that gnome texture image that I just imported, and there it is, fully in the game. All that's left to do now is to import this into Asset Party, which is like the S&Box version of the Steam Workshop. So I select my model in the asset browser, give it a name, a summary, a description, and then click Publish. I just have to wait a few seconds, and then I get this image on my screen, and that tells me it's done. Now I just have to go to the website asset.party, log in, click on that gnome model that appears now, go down to visibility, and I can change that to released because by default it appears as hidden so people can't see it. Now we'll be able to use the prop in game. So I load up a small map I've made in the past, just a small attic room, reload the prop list, and our gnome appears right on top. It's very simple, very small, and it's not a very optimized model because I didn't feel like spending extra time remeshing it and retopologizing it, but I'm pretty happy with it. So there's our final model. You can see I can rotate them around just like in Gary's mod. You can see all of these other ones. I can put in plenty of these models and I'm not lagging it bad at all. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing the process. And if you have any prompts you want me to make just like this one, write a comment below and let me know. Thank you.